Welcome to the live stream. I'm Father Roderick, and this time I'm not building a Lego castle at home using a very simple webcam. I'm actually recording this in one of the studios at the office, using a brand new camera with a whole different setup of the room and everything. And I would like to premiere all this equipment and this new setup with the recording of my weekly podcast. And so if you're watching this live on YouTube, maybe the first time that you see me recording a podcast, you may not even be aware that I had one. And for those of you that are catching this after the fact, sorry you missed the live stream, I'll try to do this more often. So we've got some people joining me, the regulars also. Some people have been watching almost every evening while I was building this Lego castle. So you see Marguerite and Nuo Productions, Jason, Andrew is there, and Papa Herschel. It's all good to see you in the chat. And we've always have some visitors from Poland as well. Now, the image that you see comes from the the Canon EOS M50. And this is something that I've always wanted to do, is to be able to use a proper camera instead of a webcam to do these broadcasts and also these recordings. And if you look closely behind me, you see some bookshelves from IKEA, but they're slightly out of focus. They're a little bit blurry. So I wanted to create a setup that would be a little bit more filmic. And of course, we just installed all this today, so we're still kind of figuring it out. The camera is brand new as well. So all of this is hopefully giving a much better image. The sound is coming from this lavalier microphone that I'm wearing that is hooked up to the Rodecaster Pro. I've got a noise gate on it, so it's a very, very different setup from the little earbuds that I was using with the built-in Apple microphone while I was building my Lego castle. So hopefully you'll be able to tell the difference. So what I've been doing for 10 years is to record a weekly podcast, and the show was as diverse as I am in terms of interest. So it would talk about science fiction, about movies and TV shows, about faith, of course, as part of my life, books, food, health, tech, technology, science fiction, all that. And just recently, I was kind of struggling with, am I going to continue like this? I wanted to invest more in YouTube and in video productions. And so I made the decision, well, you know what, I'll just make these small vlogs. I'll just take all these different topics and make various short video clips, and then post that on YouTube and post that on Facebook. However, I did change my mind again, because I've been really enjoying those Lego building sessions and the conversation with the audience, or the people that were watching, and the back and forth with the chat room. That was a lot of fun. And the long form, having like an hour to chat and to talk is so much more fun than just these short 3-4 minute videos. And I also noticed that if I have to produce 5 or 6 videos every week, it means I have to make that decision 5 or 6 times. Sit down, prepare, record, post. And it was just too much hassle. So instead of saving me time, it would increase the amount of work in order to get my my videos out. So I've decided today to switch back to improve the video. So as you can tell, it looks a lot nicer than it has ever looked before. And this is only the beginning. I want to properly light it. I've got some studio lights and everything, and I want to make the background a little bit more interesting. But that's all for later. But to go back to that long form podcast that people have been enjoying for so many years. And I'm pretty sure that most of my existing podcast listeners will enjoy me going back to this old format. And it's not that old. I stopped doing this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, just before Easter. So if you want to check out the podcast and subscribe to the audio version, just go to trideo.com. That's TRIDEO.com. And what I will do is, while I'm recording this show, while I'm recording the podcast, I will not interact all the time with the chat room, because that's very distracting. But I'll just record the show. You can watch. You can also ask questions, comment in the chat, just like you would do when I was building the Lego castle. And then when I'm done recording the proper show, I'll record an extra show, which I normally do for my patrons. It's like an after show. And there I can just go more in have a regular conversation with you guys. And so that will be a way to still have that moment of interaction. So hopefully in that way I can combine both worlds. Yes, I have a TARDIS. It's right behind me. It's a tea cup, believe it or not. You can pour tea in it and drink from it. That's why it has the handle. You also see Mickey. You see the Latin version of the first Harry Potter book, Harry Potterus. And the Nevo production says, my dad is a huge fan of your podcast and we listen to them together sometime. Well, you get to see it. You get to watch me record it live. So that's awesome. On the second shelf, you see BB-8 and a little booklet about Star Wars lessons that someone sent me, and a whole bunch of Simpsons figures. I think they came with like Happy Meals, and someone collected them all and sent them to me from the United States. And since I'm a fan of the Simpsons, I figured it would be nice to put that in the background as well. But I may change that. I may decorate it differently. It doesn't matter. I wanted to have something in the background. I stole the plant from my parishioners. Just put it there just to have something in that corner, which was very empty. Probably going to put some lights in the background as well. But that's all for later. Am I a Legend of Zelda fan? Oh my gosh, yes. I love Zelda. The only game that I haven't played, I think, is the newest Zelda game, because I don't have a Nintendo Switch. So yeah, I'm having a great time chatting with you guys as well. Hold on to your thoughts. Don't think that I forgot about you when I'm recording my show. It's just that in order to be there for the listeners later on, I got to focus on the show itself. I've got my show notes right here in front of me on my phone, so I can keep looking at the camera and make contact with you guys. And then I'll be back for the after show, and then we'll discuss, and I'll browse through your comments and we can chat. So enjoy. We're going to start. And if this is your first time, enjoy it. I'm going to put on my headphones. Normally, I wanted to create a setting where you wouldn't see this big podcasting microphone. I have a huge microphone, but it's kind of very intrusive. These are, huge as well. But I'll just do this for sound control. I'll try to get like these in-ear earbuds. So you have these Bluetooth ones that you can connect to your computer. There's a computer here on this. I'm pointing to a computer that you can't see because you're watching, like, the camera is not just on the side of the computer. But then I would be able to listen to or monitor the audio without wearing these huge headphones. But since I need to hear my jingles, or I want to hear the jingles, I want to do some sound control, this is how I'm going to record the show. Let me go through the comments, and then we'll get started. Anna is knitting socks. What is your power? Well, definitely not knitting. You never talk on YouTube comments, but now you do, to say I love your videos and your channel. That's so great to hear. Yeah, I got to do some more Let's Play videos. That's going to be one of my next steps. You're looking for the Endgame credits in the cinema. I hope you weren't too disappointed, because there's no after credit scene. Just a sound effect that is a little bit mysterious. I also noticed that there's a little bit of an echo, and that's probably because I'm using this omnidirectional microphone. I'll put it a little bit closer to my mouth. Hopefully that will alleviate that. That's one of the advantages of using a close microphone, like a podcast microphone. It doesn't pick up the echo as much as this one. So what am I going to do if someone cusses in the chat? Yeah, well, I'm basically very vulnerable. I can't monitor the chat right now, and I don't have anyone else here in the studio. So we'll just have to, turn the other cheek, right? I hope to be so entertaining that people won't get upset. All right, let's get going. I'm going to press record, and then we're going to record the show. Have fun. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of my weekly podcast. I'm Father Roderick, podcasting from the heart of the Netherlands, the beautiful city of Amersfoort. And yes, I'm back with the jingles. I'm back with the old format. Well, it's only a few weeks ago that I temporarily put this old format on hiatus. Enjoy! So as I said in the intro, I'm bringing back this old long-form podcast because I've had quite a bit of feedback from mostly my old-time listeners, and they miss this long form. They like to kind of listen to about an hour. I also miss the long form because I figured that if I would create these small videos, I could get more exposure on YouTube because a podcast itself, since it's audio only, is very hard to search. I've also thought that broadcasting on YouTube or on Facebook, just a recording of the show, me doing an hour long, that's going to be boring as well. But I have changed my mind. For the past few weeks, I've been building my Lego Hogwarts Castle. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And I noticed that a lot of people on YouTube just love to join and chat and hang out with me. And then the long form was actually very beneficial because in order to build up an audience, you need to be there for a while. And so that's why I'm bringing back the old show. And I'm also broadcasting this live on YouTube. I switched from Facebook to YouTube, and I like it a lot more. It's a different audience. It's much more interactive. I'm having a lot of fun. So if you want to catch me live one of these weeks, then by all means, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find that over at youtube.com/Father Roderick.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So here's what's been going on for the past few weeks. As I said, I've been building this Hogwarts Castle, this Lego Hogwarts Castle. I bought it in December, started building, I think even in November. One of my parishioners had built it, and I was so impressed. It looked so amazing that I was like, I want to do that too. Started building in December, on and off, didn't always have time. There were some pieces missing, so there was a bit of a delay like that. But for the past few, I think 2 weeks, I've been building nonstop. Every evening I would go online and I'd build this, and it's finished now. And it looks amazing. If you want to see what it looks like, go check out my Facebook page, or you can see me building the entire thing on YouTube. I recorded every single session. It's 25 times about an hour to an hour and a half. So it took 30 hours, 40 hours to build. But I had a lot of fun. It was so cool to be able to build and chat at the same time. So a lot of my YouTube followers kept me company, and that was a great motivation for me to continue building. And I'm going to continue doing that. I want to build more Lego stuff. People are already casting their votes. They want me to build that huge Millennium Falcon that costs like $800. And I was like, yeah, there's no way in the world and in my budget that I can do that. But I have some other Lego sets, some simpler Lego sets that we can build together, and perhaps even do some custom Lego building. So it's great to hang out. It's also a very cool way to just kind of relax and chat, which is kind of building the Lego is a pretext to just hang out with the people on YouTube. So that's a lot of fun. The Hogwarts Castle is amazing. I just received something in the mail right before I started recording. I got this little box that says, Vonado, light up your brick world. I probably have to keep it next to my face for the camera to catch it because I'm broadcasting this live as well. So this is a small box. It's unbelievable. This costs more than $70. So it's actually a very expensive box. But that's because on the inside, if I open this, there's a manual and then a ton of tiny little bags filled with microscopically small LED lights. And these lights have been tailor-made for the Hogwarts Castle. And so I can integrate this into the existing Hogwarts Castle, and then it will light up. All the windows, the tower will have little lights. There will be lanterns around the Great Hall. It's going to look amazing. At least on the advertisement on the website where I bought this, it looked really, really cool and brought the entire build to another level. It kind of made it come alive. So that's also something that I'm probably going to stream, just putting all these LED lights in place. Also, a lot of news in terms of what I will do with my time in the next couple of weeks, we just had Easter, of course, but I'm preparing to travel to France. Sunday afternoon, right after my 2 masses in the morning, I'll go to Schiphol Airport and I will fly to the beautiful city of Toulouse. And from Toulouse, I'm taking the train first to Lourdes, which is this place where the Virgin Mary appeared to Bernadette Soubirous, and where millions of pilgrims go every year for a pilgrimage. I've been there many times. Actually, the origin of my vocation is in Lourdes. It happened there. That's where I for the first time understood that I needed to become a priest. I'm going to film there for 2 days. And then I'll take the train all the way to the city of Carcassonne, which is one of the most stunning cities in the world. I mean, it looks like a live set for, I don't know, Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. It's an amazing place. Just Google it, Carcassonne. And I'll be picked up there by a hermit who's actually a priest from the Netherlands. He, for a few years ago, he was just like me, working in a parish. And then at one point, he wanted to change and felt the calling to become more of a monk, more of a hermit. So he went to France. He was very much a fan of the French culture and the French spirituality. Got himself a small little medieval church in the middle of nowhere, and has now been living for a year in this completely different world, very different from the parish world, living in silence, spending lots and lots of time every day to pray. Sometimes people will come visit him. And I will be one of those visitors, and I'm going to make a portrait of how his life has changed and what his life as a hermit looks like, because most people here have no idea. I have no idea, so I'm curious to see that as well. So that I'll be in France. That's also why next week I may do some streaming from the beautiful country of France. So stay tuned, follow the YouTube channel, make sure you click on that bell. I think that's a way to get notifications if I go live. And I may do some live streaming from this beautiful country. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then tomorrow I'm going to do some filming at a conference close by. So I've been planning tons and tons of TV show recordings in order to get ahead of the game in a certain way. Last year I've been working so hard because every time there was this deadline and I had so little time to put things together. Now I'm going to use this summertime when the weather is good and I have plenty of energy to prepare all these recordings and film in advance. And I'm enjoying it because it also involves a lot of traveling. So I'll be traveling to a number of countries. So France is the first country. I also will travel to Rome in a couple of weeks from now, and I'll record a number of episodes there. There will be live streaming from Rome and from the Vatican. How cool would that be? And I may actually also, it depends on where I go with my friends. We're currently planning our vacation, and we were first going to we were planning on going to the area of Wales. And one of the reasons was that there was a parish. Someone told me about a parish, and you could go there if you were a priest, stay there for free in the summertime. And the only thing that the local parish would ask in return was that you would celebrate Mass and do some pastoral work. Well, there's nothing I like to do more than to do that, to be a pastor in a different part of the world. But unfortunately, the diocese or the local parish, it was part of a bigger parish. They decided to close that church, so it's no longer available. And now I don't know if we want to go to Wales. So maybe we will go elsewhere. I just talked to Father Henry. He was like, well, why don't we go to the south of Italy? We can go and I know some parishes there. Maybe we can assist there. So it's still going to be a little bit of a surprise where we will go, but if we go there, I want to do some filming and some vlogging there as well. And the final bit of news is, as I told you, I'm also streaming this live on YouTube, and I'm using a completely different setup. We completely redid the entire studio setup here, and I'm using a new camera that I bought this morning. It's the Canon M50, and I'm going to give you a short review, first impressions at the end of this show in the tech department of the tech section of the show. like technology, I like gadgets, and so when I buy something new, I also talk about it here on the show. So that's coming up later. But right now I'm using this M50 to stream, and I try to make this look a bit more filmic. So I've got a little blurry background, so I've got bokeh, and I'm using this prime lens. It's all really, really exciting because I've been dreaming about this for a long time, and now it's happening.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
Normally during my show, I also always do reviews of movies and TV shows that I watch. And I try to be topical and watch what other people are interested in as well. Well, of course, last week I gave you my spoiler-free Avengers Endgame review. And that was very popular. A lot of people love to see a review that was not spoiling anything, but I try to go a little bit more in depth than just saying, oh, it was awesome. Because, well, there's nothing new there. Everyone who has seen it knows that it is an awesome movie. It is definitely the best for me in the Avengers series. It has a great conclusion to this story that has been building for 10 years, more than 20 movies. And I'm planning on doing a little video, like a vlog, about something that this movie helped me understand a little bit better. Especially when it comes to mourning and people that you love that pass away. This movie has a very powerful message, I think, on that. But I can't talk about it right now. I do want to isolate that from my other videos because it will be spoiler-filled. And so I'm going to wait a little bit before I film that. I hope you get to see the movie. Now, another movie, I was so inspired while I was building my Hogwarts Lego Castle that I checked out a movie that I hadn't seen when it was in theaters, and that is the second Lego movie. I think it's called the Lego Movie, the second part, which of course is kind of an inside joke. It refers to the parts that you use to build Lego. And I was really looking forward to it because I loved the first Lego movie, the humor, the way it was filmed. This is all CGI. But it looks as if it is really done with stop motion, and it's unbelievable what it was so creative and original. They could have done like a CGI, very slick version of the Lego, of a Lego story. They have like these animated series on Netflix. They look very fake. I mean, it's more like the sequences that you see in those Lego video games, where like when the movie moves forward, but you can tell that it's computer generated. Well, with the Lego movies, you can't tell. The Batman movie was great. I haven't seen a Ninjago movie. I wonder if it's any good. But I most of all, I was looking forward to reconnecting with the cast, with the old characters that we loved so much. And it was just a great cast, and so there was so much humor in that first movie. And they're all back. It is many years later, so it's a kind of a Lego version of a post-apocalyptic world. But it becomes much more apocalyptic when the sister of the boy who is playing with the Legos, because there's kind of like a meta story in the first movie where all of a sudden you're in the real world and you see that what these Lego figures are experiencing as adventures is actually because someone is playing with these Lego figurines. Now that they bring that to the second movie as well, but this time it's not just the boy of the family, but also the sister who brings in all these new Lego creatures and Lego friends and all sorts of stuff that we as hardcore Lego fans would consider to be totally non-canon. You can't do that, you know? It's like all of a sudden, like being in the middle of a fight near the Death Star and the Star Trek Enterprise arrives and starts shooting, and the Borg arrive, and it's like, you can't do that. Yeah. But that's the fun part of Lego. With Lego, you can do anything you like. And that was part of the first movie as well. Part of the message was, you're not confined the world is not rigid. You can create and just use your imagination, and you get these master builders that can do anything with Lego. The second movie kind of shows the conflict side of that. So what happens if you get some battle over what can and cannot be part of that Lego world? So it's a fun premise. I have to say that even though I really liked the movie, it was fun to watch, it didn't have that same brilliance of the first movie. It was fun, it was okay, but at times I felt the movie was a little bit thinner in plot-wise. It's still very, very funny. There are lots of inside jokes, but I felt that they could have done a little bit more with it. It's like halfway through the movie, you kind of see where things are going. And so this movie seemed to be a bit more for kids and less for adults. Whereas the first movie was definitely very enjoyable for kids, but there was so much tongue-in-cheek humor that I felt that it was more geared to older Lego fans. But anyway, enjoyable, but not really the genius of the first movie. I also think that it didn't do as well at the box office as the first Lego movie, and I'm not surprised. So anyway, whatever they do with Lego, I enjoy it. So overall, I would give it a thumbs up. I also watched a totally different type of movie on Netflix, and I may have already mentioned this. I just don't remember if I've already talked about this on the show or whether I did this in a video or just live while chatting while building Lego. But I finally saw the movie Bandersnatch, which is more than a movie. It's like this interactive movie that you can watch on Netflix. You need to have a remote control. I think you can also do that on your computer. And at certain moments in the movie, you have to make choices. So it's either, do I go left, do I go right? Does the guy listen to this type of music or this type of music? And those choices influence the rest of the story. And I was stunned. It was such an immersive experience and very much felt like these old choose your own adventure books. I used to have one of those when I was a little bit younger, and it was a Star Wars Choose Your Own Adventure, and I think I gave it away. I don't think I have it anymore, but I remember it being so much fun and rereading it and making different choices, and then you have to go to page 560, and then you have to go back to page 30, and it was so much fun. Well, this movie brings back that interactive experience, but it goes beyond that. At one point, you're like, because this is in the series of Black Mirror, and Black Mirror is always showing us not just what technology will do and may be doing for us in the near future, but also shows you kind of the dark side of it. And at one point, you're kind of pulled into that dark side of exactly what you're doing, the choices that you're making, the way you influence the story, influences the story to a degree that I did not expect at all. So I was like, it was a jaw-dropping experience, and I wanted to see more of this. So it was very, very enjoyable. Bandersnatch, if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's definitely worth your time.
Catholics rock!
Welcome to The Peculiar Bunch. This is the segment where I try to answer your questions when it comes to all these weird things that Catholics do and believe. And believe me, there are a lot of them.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
And no, Homer, we don't eat light bulbs, but Catholics have some very strange customs and ideas and sometimes do very weird things.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
And one of these weird things that some Catholics, actually a few Catholic priests from one particular country, from the country of Poland. There were, I think, from what people in the chat on YouTube have been telling me, there are 3 priests in Poland that have burned Harry Potter books. They put them on a big pile and made a bonfire out of Harry Potter books. And their message was, these books are evil, these books are dangerous, they menace your soul, they talk about wizardry, witchcraft, they divert children from the truth and from God and from love and turn them into evil worshippers of esoteric stuff. And a lot of people saw me building this Harry Potter castle and were wondering, well, are all Catholics like that? is this something? Is the Pope also burning Harry Potter books? And so people were genuinely kind of concerned about that book burning and wanted to know if, well, one person at one point even asked me, does your bishop know that you're building a Harry Potter castle? Is that okay with him? Maybe he'll come over and burn the Harry Potter castle. So, and this is something that I've discussed in the past many times before. But I always get new listeners. I now have also a YouTube audience that is watching this and listening to this. So I want to kind of revisit this topic. Also because, of course, we've just had a new movie in the Wizarding World series, the Magical Creature series, The Crimes of Grindelwald. And so this will be an ongoing discussion. We're continuing to enjoy these Harry Potter movies. And so this question will return time and again. Well, here's my take, and I've also explained this before. The Harry Potter books are fiction. They're like fairy tales. And because they're fiction, things happen that are not real, right? It's like fairy tales. It's like Little Red Riding Hood visits her grandmother. The grandmother is eaten by the wolf, and she liberates the grandmother. And she's still alive, even though she was eaten by a wolf. Well, that's scientifically impossible. That's biologically impossible. This is a story full of lies. Children should not read this. It's going to make them think that you can just be eaten by a wolf, and children may believe in dragons because there are dragons in these fairy tale stories. Dragons are not real. Dragons are imaginary creatures. That is so evil that these stories are trying to make children believe that they're actual dragons that can be slain by like, it's the same thing. It's Harry Potter. It's a magical world. It's a fairy. Take a feather if you're concerned about Harry Potter. Put it on the table. Point I don't know what, a stick to it. If you have like chopsticks, just take a chopstick, pretend it's a wand, and then touch the feather and say, Wingardium Leviosa. If the feather starts really floating in front of you, then come and see me and we'll have a different talk. But it won't. It's fairy tales, it's make-believe, it's a special effect. So that's my first thing. I think it's underestimating the readers of the Harry Potter books and the viewers of the Harry Potter saga to think that they can't distinguish between fiction and reality. And if you burn the Harry Potter books, to be consistent, you should also burn Tolkien's books. Because Tolkien has wizards too. It's got Gandalf. He's even more than a wizard. He's a Valar. And there are evil, infernal creatures in Harry Potter as well. In Tolkien as well. But the thing is, if you burn Tolkien's books, you burn the books of one of the most devout Catholics that we've ever seen. Tolkien went to church every Sunday. He was raising his children in a very strict way, in a certain way. He's a very convinced Catholic who is totally orthodox. C.S. Lewis, Narnia, that story too has talking lions. It's got, wizards and witches and all sorts of evil spirits and whatnot. C.S. Lewis was a very convinced Christian and wrote his stories to actually mirror the gospel. So that entire attitude towards the Harry Potter books, I think, is ridiculous and shows a disrespect of the reader, a total lack of, I think, knowledge of what these Harry Potter books are actually about. Also shows that some people don't understand literature. I mean, look at the Bible. The Bible is full of stories that are shocking, like people that are doing the most evil things. And should we abolish the Bible because of that? It's so short-minded, short-sighted. And what's more, and this is something that I also always add to the conversation, Harry Potter is not about magic. Yes, it tells a story about wizards and witches, and it involves children waving wands, but the story is ultimately, and this is part, if they had read the books, they would know, it's ultimately about the true magic, the deepest, the oldest form of magic, which is defined as love. And love is such a strong form of magic, and who wouldn't agree that love is magical? Love can make the impossible possible. The way that God created the world out of nothing, you could label that as magic, like something is not there and then all of a sudden something is there. But what God is using love. So love is, in a certain way, magic is a metaphor of love. And I would say that the magic that you see in the Harry Potter stories is, in a certain way, also, it's kind of like the charisms in the gospel, where people get different types of gifts. If I'm good at painting and I become a painter, I can honor God by making beautiful paintings. I can give something back to. If my gift, or one of my charisms, is that I'm a musician, I can give something back to God by becoming the creator of beautiful music that elevates the soul. There's so many ways in which you can use those gifts. Well, in the stories, magic is seen like that. It's a gift. Not everyone receives these gifts. There are muggles as well, or no mages. But if you have received this gift of being able to perform magic, you can use it for good or for evil. Voldemort and his crew, they use magic for evil, for domination, to grab power, to suppress other people. Whereas the good wizards use it for good. But that makes the story about choices and not about the magic per se. It's about what do you do with something that has been, with this great gift of magic that has been given to you. So, and that is, you can't go more educational than that. So that is what I would like these opponents of Harry Potter to see. And then the final thing that I would add is J.K. Rowling herself has said that her stories are very much inspired by the gospel, by her own Christian background. And a lot of the themes that you see in the Harry Potter stories are straight from the Bible. They're age-old situations and themes where people have to choose. And it's about friendship. It's about conversion. It's about people making the wrong choices and what that does to the world. A lot of the symbols that you hear about, like for instance, the unicorn in the first book. The unicorn is a medieval symbol for Christ himself. And Voldemort, he is the one who wants to flee. He wants to escape death. He's afraid of death, but the only way he thinks that he can retain his life is by killing. Whereas Harry learns over time that the only way to save life and to preserve the life of the people that he loves is by sacrificing himself. Harry Potter is a messianic archetype. You see what I mean? This is the kind of discussion that we should have about Harry Potter. Not burning books because we are afraid of them and because we are afraid of the choices that people make. Let people read those books. If they don't like them, and if their faith is strong enough, well, they will choose other things. It's like basically any other thing that is. Our culture is not an enemy. It's not something that you should fear and should warn against. And I'm always very, very hesitant when I hear people, or sometimes bishops, say, well, the culture is evil and we need to kind of retreat on our little Catholic island and we need to arm ourselves. There's this big battle going on, and then everything that's not Catholic is immediately labeled as evil. And that is actually not Catholic to think like that. Catholics are very open. The word katholikos in Greek means universal. It's this attitude where you're open to the world around you because it was created by God. And you weigh the things. And some things are evil, not everything is good. And you have to make choices. That's what makes life so interesting. And then faith helps you. It becomes the light. It becomes your lantern that shows you which way to go. But it's very un-Catholic to condemn everything and to say everything is evil without having first read it, first having considered it. Always look for the positive sides. That's what I see Jesus do. He's always looking for redemption instead of always condemning everything. And so, anyway, I just want to share that with you because it's something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm a little bit ashamed that people from my church are doing these things. And believe me, it's not representative for the Catholic Church. And, well, if my Polish was good enough, I'd probably go and see these Polish priests and have a good, strong conversation about Harry Potter. They could learn a thing or two.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
It is time to talk about books. Well, of course, I've talked already about Harry Potter, but enough about that. I want to talk about a book that I've started reading and finally, I was able to get past the first few chapters. Sometimes you have these books where everyone tells you, oh, it's such an awesome series, you gotta read that, you're gonna love it. And you start reading, and after the first chapter, you're like, who is that guy again? And wait a minute, where is this? And what's going on? Sometimes writers kind of deliberately plunge you in the middle of action, and you have no clue what's happening. And they actually want you to continue reading, and then after a while, when you start to get your grip on the world that they've created, then you go back and then you understand what was happening in that first chapter. Well, that happened to me with this book as well. It is The Eye of the World. It's written by Robert Jordan. That's a pseudonym for another name that I don't know. And it is the first book of a long series of books that is called the Wheel of Time series. And the Wheel of Time is a fantasy story. It is similar in tone to Tolkien's writing. It's very different, but it has that same vibe to it, especially the first book. And everybody told me, this is an amazing series. You have to read it. This is totally up your alley. Yeah, it's going to take 2 years of your life. If you read every day, like the first book is like 800 pages or something like that. But you got to read it. You're going to love it. And then I started reading the first chapter, and that is this big mythological story, and I was like, what is going on? There's this king or something like walking around, and he's trying to find his wife. And then there's this other guy that arrives, and he seems to be evil. And then it turns out the other guy may have amnesia and has done something evil. And then he touches the Force or something like that. And then he's all of a sudden in a different environment. And then there is an earthquake and a volcano. And then a river splits in two. And I was like reading that, and I was like, I have no idea what the heck? And then the second chapter is like these two, like a father and a son, and they're walking about, and they're heading for a village, and they're going to deliver some wine or whatever. And then there's going to be a party in the village, and they see this kind of mysterious rider on a dark rider on a horse. So I'm thinking, wow, this sounds like the ring wraiths, in The Hobbit or in The Lord of the Rings. And then the rider's gone, but then it just goes on and on and on about the village, and you have all these names, all these characters that are introduced, and I was so lost. And of course, it doesn't help that I'm always reading this at the end of the day before I go to bed. So I would fall asleep after 2-3 paragraphs. And I just couldn't get past that second chapter. So what was my salvation? I went for a training walk the other day, and I walked for about 6 hours. I'm preparing for a big walking event in July, where for 4 days I'll have to walk 40 kilometers per day, 4 days in a row. And in order to get ready for that, I need to do these long distance training walks. And so I like walking in silence and just thinking, and when I go out for a run, I don't take my iPhone with me, I don't listen to music, I just like to clear my head. But there's a big difference between like an hour of running and 6 hours of walking. After 4 or 5 hours, my brain is fried. And it's like, I need some diversion. So I decided to listen to the audiobook version of Wheel of Time. And because I had 6 hours and I was just listening and there was nothing else that I had to do, I could totally jump into the story and it grabbed me. And now, finally, I feel like okay, now I'm on a roll. Now I want to know what's happening. And I am so enjoying this. And I'm reading this is also an experiment. I'm reading this in 2 languages. So I'm listening to the audiobook version in English, and it's really good. It's a professional actor, a voice actor, and he's doing all the voices and the accents, and it's great. I see the movie in my mind. But then when I read, in order to pick up speed, I'm reading the Dutch version. So I switch back between the English audiobook and then the Dutch written book, the ebook. They're actually very affordable in Dutch. So because in Dutch I read, even though I talk a lot in English, but for reading, I can read at least 4 or 5 times faster in Dutch compared to English. And so I can really, I snuggle up in my big reading chair that I have, and I dim the lights, and there's only me and my Kindle, and I can really do some long distance reading in Dutch. The only thing that is a bit annoying is that, and they did this for Harry Potter, they do this with The Hobbit and Tolkien's works as well, they Dutchified all the names. So instead of using the original English names and also places, they made like a Dutch version. And it's so confusing because like, wait, what? Twee water? What? Oh, it's the town of 2 rivers. Why don't they just use 2 rivers? I mean, twee water, why? And they do that even with the character names. So because I'm going back and forth, it's quite easy to kind of make the connection and thinking, okay, well, that's that and that's that. But it is a little bit of a handicap, but I do prefer reading in Dutch when I'm reading on the Kindle itself because, well, if it's like running and walking, difference between walking and running. I like to do both, but with running, you can see some stuff. You actually, you're making. When I'm running them all, I always have the feeling that I'm accomplishing more because I'm going faster. And walking is just like I enjoy being outside, and I don't really have a goal. I just want to be outside for a couple of hours. So with reading, it's very much the same. I like to listen to the audiobook, and it's very leisurely. And it's just as if I'm kind of immersed in this. The book is pretty slow, so I'm just in this world, and I can be there for a while. But when I'm reading, I want to hit that chapter goal, I want to get through this book, and I want to see how quickly I can finish this book. Because I have, 12 other books to go, 800 pages each. So I am very determined to get through this series, but it will take several years, I'm pretty sure. So in order to do that, I need to read in Dutch. All right, that's what I wanted to share with you. Let's move over to the world of, I don't know, what jingle is this? I think it is science fiction. Do I have a science fiction topic to talk about with you guys? And girls? I think so, yeah. Oh, well, let's talk Star Trek. It's back on TV, as you know, Star Trek Discovery. I'm not sure if everyone that is listening or watching has seen the 2 seasons, because in the United States, I think it's on CBS All Access, whereas in the rest of the world, it's on Netflix. So I'll keep it spoiler-free.
Scientifically wonderful world of science.
What sort of science?
Welcome back, science friends.
Yeah. So this is actually about science. I thought it was the science fiction jingle. It's a science jingle. I'll turn it into science fiction. Who cares? Anyway, so Star Trek Discovery, which is also a little bit about science. I've said it before. I love this series. I love what they do. They really innovate a lot. Visually, it is stunning. They really go the J.J. Abrams kind of direction visually. But in terms of storytelling, this is starting to move closer to the Star Trek that we know and love. The introduction of Pike in the 2nd season, or actually is in the last episode of the 1st season. So they reintroduced Pike. That's not a spoiler because Pike is in that time frame. He used to be the commander, the captain of the Star Trek Enterprise before Captain Kirk took over. And the very first pilot episode of the original Star Trek series was actually not with Kirk, with William Shatner. They cast another actor, and he played Captain Pike. And it's only afterwards that they kind of retconned that, and then they used that pilot into another episode with the cast that we currently know, with Shatner and Nimoy and everything. But it's a very interesting, if you can get hold of that pilot episode, it's very interesting to see it. Well, Pike in this second season has a major role, and he is so good that now fans are asking for a separate series with just Pike and his crew and the Enterprise. And you know what? I think it is the best idea ever. If they do that, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do, because they're very sensitive to what the fan base is asking, I predict that this may be the most successful series in the entire lineup of Star Trek series. Because Pike embodies both the new, because he's in this era of discovery, so it's visually very new, it's very cinematic, but he is closer to the original Star Trek feeling than anything we've seen before on TV, except for the original series. So he's a classic captain, and we need role models. We need these courageous people that are brave, that are virtuous, that are not, don't have a second hidden agenda, being evil. He's a genuine, old-fashioned, I would say, old-fashioned classic hero. And we live in such cynical times where you can, trust no one. There's fake news. We don't know who to believe anymore. And I think this is the momentum that this series could use to reposition Pike as a classic hero, telling classic heroic stories that give us hope and rekindle the idealism in our hearts, which is, I think, what the world needs right now. It's definitely what I need now. And it's something that Star Trek has always done as a core mission. It was a series that always wanted to give us a hopeful look on the future instead of this dim, grim, gritty, post-apocalyptic stuff that we've been watching for 5-6 years now. I've predicted this before, years ago, that we would soon see the end of all these bloodless, gray-looking, depressing post-apocalyptic movies and TV shows. And the same thing, that's why I said I know that DC is going to come around. They will have to step back from these gritty, dark, depressing versions of Superman and Batman and go back to something a little bit more cheerful, because the times that we live in are dark enough. We don't need a dark Knight. We need a Dark Knight that is, yes, he's dark and he lives in a dark world, but he is also bringing us justice and helping people. And that's why I think Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man, is such a success. It's this optimism. That's why Avengers is so amazing, because despite all the darkness and the constant threat of Thanos, it tells a story of how good people can overcome evil. And I think we're going to see, that's why Shazam is so amazing. Did I do a review of Shazam? Probably not. Well, I'll talk about Shazam another time. It's DC doing it right. And I think giving the world what the world needs right now, is optimism. Anyway, Star Trek Discovery Season 2 was even better, actually was a lot better than Season 1 in my opinion. It fleshed out a lot of the crew members. So they also toned down the presence of some of the main characters to give more room to the secondary characters. There's still a lot of people on that bridge that we don't get to know, and it's something that has surprised me a little bit, because Star Trek used to do a lot of these character episodes, but this second season didn't have any standalone episodes. It was all about every episode thrust the story forward. And you can do this because it's on CBS All Access and Netflix, so people are watching this, well, not really in bulk, but they're watching every week, so you can keep the pace up and have these cliffhangers and what's going to happen next. What I liked about the second season is that it addresses an interesting theme of science versus faith. It introduces a character that is kind of emblematic for this kind of really scientific, objective, logical view of the world. That's all I'm going to say about it. But then you also have some characters, Pike is one of them, that are much more of the disposition that that life is about more than just what you can calculate and what is logical. It's also about a plan. There is a bigger plan. We have a destiny. We have a mission. And what is required is not just logic, it's also faith. Now, they kind of dial that back because, of course, well, it's not a very popular theme nowadays, and they are afraid to get backlash if they would say that, well, Star Trek has some religious elements, and a lot of people would get upset. It's like, oh, it's not supposed to be. Gene Roddenberry is very, atheistic and, had a worldview where there is no place for religion anymore, just like we got rid of that evil money, we got rid of that evil faith. And over time, Star Trek has become much more diverse, and I think it's a good thing because the world in which we live is very diverse, and you have a lot of people that don't believe in God, but do believe in the goodness of people, and there are a lot of people that do believe in the goodness of people and also believe in God. And so why wouldn't a Star Trek series reflect that diversity? You have choices, just like that's what makes Star Trek so interesting. It's an ensemble cast, and so you have people that you identify with and that are like ideals to you. There are also other characters that you don't connect with. But maybe very inspiring to other viewers. That is, I think, what makes Star Trek so interesting. You don't have to really, you don't get it, they don't force it onto you. They don't shove it through your throat like this is what we want you to believe. I think the best Star Trek stories are the stories where you can choose who you identify with and where you can imagine, what would I do in this situation? And so I like this science versus faith. The whole storyline of season 2 is about this bigger plan and this mysterious figure. If you've seen it, you know which figure I'm talking about. And there is this question for many episodes, like, is this an illusion? Is this a dream? Is this something spiritual? Something from the world beyond this world? Or is there a scientific explanation? And even though the movie, the series at one point shows us what was truly the identity of this figure, it's still, from my point of view, not incompatible with faith, in the sense that there may still be a bigger plan, and that can impact the choices that you make. And so science does not oppose faith. In theory, I think in reality, they are complementary. Faith can give perspective to science, and science can give a strong foothold to faith. And I'm very much in favor of science and scientific progress and exploration, because I don't think they're on the same. It's on the same level. Science is a way to describe the visible world. And whereas faith is more about, but what is the reason? Where to? It's not just how does this work and how did this come about, but it's also why. And what is the meaning of all this? So faith is about giving meaning to the things that you can measure and calculate and explore and discover. Well, the second season for me was very much about this kind of conversation. So I'm intrigued, and I can't wait for Star Trek. I can't believe that we have to wait another year for Star Trek to be back. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Picard series. There's going to be this spin-off series with Georgiou, and, well, maybe a series with Pike. The more the merrier. Give us more Star Trek. I'm very much waiting for that.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Let's plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device, and it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build,
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
In this segment of the show, I'm always talking about technology, about gadgets, about software, hardware. And today I want to give you my first impressions of this new Canon EOS M50 camera that I bought this morning. I don't know if you are like me, but when I want to buy some new piece of equipment, I spend so much time researching. I watch, like I'm currently looking for a new phone. And you won't believe how many YouTube videos I've seen, how many websites I've browsed through to decide which is going to be the successor to this iPhone 6 Plus, which is kind of old by now and slowing down. And I have so many different requirements. I want the phone to have good cameras. It needs to have a wide-angle lens because wide-angle is awesome. And so that for now, iPhones don't have a wide angle. There are a few camera phones that have that. You've got the Huawei phones, but they're, I don't like Huawei too much. Then you've got the Xiaomi, which is another Chinese brand, which is pretty affordable, but then those lenses are not stabilized. So there's no optical stabilization, and there are a lot of software problems with those phones. They're very cheap though. And then you have Samsung. And just the other day, I was almost on the verge of ordering the new Samsung S10e, which is kind of the mid-range version, because it has wide angle. It can film in 4K, 60 frames per second, and it's got a lot of cool things. And then the final, I was watching some more YouTube videos about that, some more reviews, and then someone said, well, it's such a pity that Samsung doesn't open up the camera API to other developers, even though they say so in their presentation. But it's in reality like what's the name of that program? There's an app that you can use on many phones to do professional filming. The name escapes me. Filmic Pro. Filmic Pro uses the API, so that means kind of like it's like the app can use the hardware directly, but in order to do that, the manufacturer of the phone has to kind of give them permission to do that. And so with Filmic, you can film in 24 frames per second. You can film in log, which means that it's a way to film to get the maximum information. So there's no image processing taking place. That gives you a very bland-looking intermediate result, but then you can bring that into your editing program and do tons of things in terms of image improvement. And with filming, a lot of phones don't do that. They just want to give regular users a good-looking image. So they'll do a lot of processing for you. But if you're a filmmaker like me, you want to do that yourself. And Filmic enables you to do that. So I was like, if I can use Filmic on the Samsung with those two lenses, there's a wide-angle lens and there's a very good quality main lens with optical image stabilization, 4K, 60 frames per second. It's going to be awesome. And then it turns out that Samsung has blocked Filmic from using the camera. So now I'm back at square one. Well, anyway, so I was doing a lot of research, and I was also thinking about what can I do. I was kind of, I was getting tired of using the webcam. I was using an old Logitech webcam for the Lego streaming, and it worked okay. It was a very clunky setup at home. I was building the thing at home, and it worked because it was just chatting, and it wasn't really too much bothered about the image quality. But then I was thinking, well, what if I could do this kind of long-form streaming, but then with a better image, do it in a studio setting, and what kind of camera would I need to have in order to do the blurry background? Because that's something that I've always wanted to do, like a little bit of a bokeh effect. That's what they call a blurry background. Can I find an affordable solution? A lot of people were pointing me to the Sony A7 Mark III or something like that. It's a very powerful full-frame camera, 4K. It's got great lenses, great image, optical image stabilization in the body of the camera. But that was so expensive. Like the body alone is like $2,000, and then every lens you buy is hundreds and hundreds of dollars or euros. So in total, it would be $3,000 just to stream. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I looked into Canon because I've been using for my TV shows. I'm using the Canon 80D, which is a really well-known camera. It's very sturdy. It's an old DSLR, so it's got a mirror in it. It's got stabilized lenses. The thing is, it weighs a ton. It's very, very heavy. I like heavy, when I'm on the road and sturdy because, sometimes you drop things or it needs to be weatherproof. But I like Canon. It's very intuitive to me. And so I saw that there was a mirrorless variant which has the same sensor and also partially the same software, the same processing of the ADD, and it was called the M50. The M50 did have some downsides. It's got a cropped sensor. It's cropping the image, so it means that it's not using the entire sensor. But if you put a lens on it, it only uses part of the sensor, so you get a kind of, it's like if you put a lens on it, it gets a little, it's very close. It's what the iPhone does when you film. All of a sudden, you don't see the entire picture. The picture becomes smaller. And so you try to do a selfie, and you want to film while using the front camera of the iPhone. All of a sudden, it's like you've got a huge nose, and it's too close, and you need to use a selfie stick to get it. Well, I didn't want that. So what I did was, I bought the M50, which is very affordable. It's about I paid $550, I think. And then it comes with a kit lens, which is not very, nothing spectacular. It's a little bit of a wide angle, 15mm to 50, I think. Nothing to write home about. But then there was a very affordable 22mm lens. It's what they call a pancake lens. It's a prime lens, which means you can't zoom with it. Sorry about the tech talk. This is what I do in this tech segment. So it's you can't zoom. It's one position, one aperture. But it is what they call a very fast lens. So it's got a big lens opening. It lets in a lot of light. And the faster a lens is, the more light it lets in, the more you can do the blurry background. The more bokeh is possible. And so I placed this lens on the EOS M50, and it is just the right frame. You can see the background, but it's slightly out of focus. You can still see what's on the IKEA shelves behind me. So it's got Harry Potter in Latin. It's got Mickey Mouse. It's got BB-8 and Yoda and some figurines of The Simpsons. So you can see that, but it's a little bit out of focus, so that the image gets a lot of depth. I'm in focus, so I'm very sharp, and then behind me it's a little bit out of focus. I love that. I love that image. And this is still done with a very bad studio lighting here. It's the office lighting. So I'm going to install some of I've got a light kit with LED lights, and I can make it look so pretty over time. And the other thing is, normally you can't really stream with the EOS M50. For streaming, a lot of vloggers would use an HDMI connection, and then they would have like a dongle that converts the HDMI image to a USB signal, so that your computer can see it as a webcam. That's basically how they all do it. The thing is, the HDMI signal that comes from these Canon cameras is what they call a dirty signal. It's not clean. It's not just the image. It also has all the menus on it, or the little square around the head where it's focusing. And of course, you don't want to stream that to YouTube. Well, lo and behold, on the Mac, there is a program on GitHub that you can download, and that connects to the camera via, believe it or not, USB, just USB. The camera hasn't been designed for that, but apparently there is some signal coming through the USB. And this little bit of open source software sees the camera image and can offer it to the system. In my case, it's an old iMac, as if it were a webcam, full HD, with all the quality of the image. So what the lens sees is what I can stream. And then I can use Ecamm, which is the streaming software, and Ecamm sees the camera, sees the EOS M50 as a streaming camera. And so now I can do YouTube streaming with a professional grade camera. And I couldn't be more happy that this all worked. And it was like, I can't believe that this worked. And so just the comparison between the Sony solution, it would have cost me the Sony body, a good prime lens, that would already been have been around $3,000. Then the converter, big problem of the A7 or the Alpha 7 Mark III. It doesn't have a screen. You can't use it in selfie mode. The screen is glued to the back, and you can't turn it. That's one of the things that Canon always does really well. It has a screen that you can turn around, and so I can see myself now next to the camera. There is the viewing screen, and I'm looking at the camera. I always try to avoid looking on this. But in the corner of my eye, I can see if I'm, if the thing is on, and if it's well positioned, if it's in focus and everything. So my solution cost $550 plus the prime lens, which was $200. I get $30 back from Canon because I bought it in conjunction with a camera. So that is about, let's say, $700. Plus, I bought a new tripod, a Rolei tripod, which is super lightweight. It's going to be great for traveling to Rome. That was $150. So in total, I spend about $950 for this entire, almost full frame camera with great depth of field possibilities. It is a great, also kind of B-roll camera because it has all the abilities of the Canon 80D, but it's like a third of the weight. This is a very heavy camera, and after a while, I get really tired of carrying it in my hand. This camera can do exactly the same image quality, but it is so small and so lightweight. Like the lens, the pancake lens is so tiny. If you walk around with this, nobody will see that I'm actually making television. So I'm very, very impressed by the M50. It had one little strange thing. The image on the viewfinder, on the video screen, sometimes would go black all of a sudden. So I thought it was faulty. Turns out it has a proximity sensor for the viewfinder. It's an electronic viewfinder, and if you move it to your face, then the screen goes dark. And that was what was happening. So apparently super sensitive. So every time I moved my hand in front of the viewfinder, the screen would go black, and I was like, oh, it's broken. Oh no. Well, it turns out it's easy to turn that off in the settings, and now it works wonderfully. So I am so stoked. I was so excited that I wanted to use it right away for a live stream, record the long form podcast, and let me know if you like this. I hope that you do. I'm Father Roderick. You've been listening to my weekly podcast. Go to Tridio.com for more and subscribe to my social media channels at Father Roderick. Take care. God bless. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. That is how I record my weekly podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. As I mentioned before, for those of you that have jumped on the bandwagon a little bit later, while I'm recording the show, I'm mainly talking and looking at the camera, so I can't really read the comments because that would be very distracting. But I also, every week, I record an after show. And that show is audience-driven. So that's what I'm going to record now. I'm going to go back to the chat room, read through your comments, and we'll have a chat. So let's do that right now. Hey, I'm Father Roderick, and this is the after show, recorded specifically for my patrons, the people that support me over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. Thank you so much for being a supporter like that. As you've noticed, the old format of the show is back. It's only been on hiatus for a couple of weeks, but I'm bringing back the long form because it's easier. It's much easier. I just like chatting. And I've got a new setup for streaming, as you've been able to hear in the podcast. And so the combination of having a good camera setup and having, I'm now streaming on YouTube. I've been streaming for a couple of weeks on YouTube, and it's a game changer compared to Facebook. I mean, I love Facebook, but there is so much more interaction. And the people that are on YouTube are from all over the world, and it's a fun community. So that made me so motivated to kind of bring back the old format and just chat for an hour. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years or 12 years. I've been podcasting since 2005. How many years is that? 2005. That is like 14 years already. Oh my goodness. So anyway, that's what I do. And I know that some of you at least have let me know that they would listen to anything, but they do prefer the long form. So for the after show, now that I have a YouTube community that is constantly chatting away, I have plenty to talk about in the after show as well, because I can just go through all the comments and the questions, and there are, compared to Facebook, I would get like 3 or 4 comments, and that was it. With YouTube, I've got pages and pages and pages of commentary, and it's a lot of fun. And as I said, it's from all over the world. So let me go through the comments. The only downside is this window is tiny and my eyes are not that good, so I have to kind of move forward a little bit to read them on the screen. Marguerite wants to know. Marguerite is from France. I get to know this community over time because we chat so much while building Lego castles. Marguerite wants to know, who's your favorite character in The Lord of the Rings? And I would say it is Sam. Sam is the real hero, I think, of The Lord of the Rings. He's a faithful friend. He is the one who carries Frodo up the mountain when Frodo himself collapses. And if it hadn't been for Sam, the ring wouldn't have been destroyed. So, and I like that he's simple, but in a good way, simple. He likes his food, he likes his friends, his community, and I just, if I had to be one person in Middle Earth, I would be Sam. I have a little TARDIS here behind me, which is actually a teacup. And it's in ceramic. Someone sent it to me, and I love it. And I still haven't seen the new season of Doctor Who. I'm waiting for it for Netflix actually to bring it to their lineup. But for now they only have the last season with Capaldi. So I really am curious what they did, because it's new writers as well, not just a new doctor, a female doctor, but also new writers. And I think the show really needed some fresh blood. So I'm looking forward to that. Now we have fathers and sons or daughters listening to the podcast together. That is awesome. Lots and lots of questions about Endgame, but I can't really talk about spoilers yet. Comical wants to know if I am a Legend of Zelda fan, and I really like Zelda. I've played almost all the games, either in an emulator or on the Wii. I've had one of those old Wii machines, and have I done? Perhaps on the Game Boy not. But anyway, Zelda is amazing. I haven't played the Breath of the Wild, which looks amazing, but I don't have a Nintendo Switch, and I'm not planning on buying one anytime soon. Even though I've heard that the Nintendo is working on a cheaper version of the Nintendo's of the Switch, so maybe over time. But the thing is, those consoles and games are expensive, and I don't have much time to play video games anyway. So it's kind of more in the area of wants, but definitely not in needs. So I try to be concerned. I've had a past with way too many games. I bought so many games, and I just didn't want to realize that life is finite. I don't have the lifespan to play all these video games. So, oh well. Let's see. We have a lot of hello there's from all over the world. That is, and there was a question: what do you do when someone starts to cuss in the chat? That only happened once while I was doing Lego. Someone came in the chat and started to lash out and insult everyone and insult me, and I didn't know what to do because I was like, what? We're having a great time here chatting. I'm not doing anything evil. Why are you so upset? And well, I had to kind of sit behind a computer and mute that person, or I actually reported the person because it was harassment. It was very offensive. But anyway, that just happens. It's just part of the reality. I would just ignore it, and I would advise anyone if you ever get someone like that in the chat, Don't feed the troll. If there's anything we learned from Harry Potter is don't feed the troll. So, Kieran is there too, and some people from Poland. And a lot of people seem to enjoy the channel on YouTube, and it is fun. I wish I could do a little bit more. One of the ideas that I have is to, I always wanted to do a little bit more with video productions and bringing some of the stuff that I do for TV to my international audience. And I think I need to build that up slowly, step by step, and start perhaps with small vlogs, like once a week, just one small topic, but do it really well. So anyway, I try to not overpromise and underdeliver. I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver. So yes, I've finished the castle. There's some questions about that. Not everyone saw the live stream, but it's still up on YouTube. You can still see it. What I haven't filmed and shown yet is how it looks in the living room. I brought it downstairs. It's on the table that I use for board games, and it looks stunning. And it doesn't even have the LED lights yet, so I can't wait to see what it looks like once it's all finished. And a lot of people actually like to watch building or video game streams, because it's just hanging out with people you like. So let's see. Well, some people are. Claudia is looking forward to seeing the lights. And Paul says, I'm French, and priests in France are terribly annoying. Can you speak French a little bit? Bien sûr, je peux parler en français. On a eu beaucoup de visiteurs de France, de Paris, de Amiens, je crois, l'autre jour. Mais le problème, c'est que quand je parle français, les autres ne vont pas comprendre. Mais je t'assure, je connais plein de prêtres en France qui sont superbes. Mais il y en a toujours aussi qui sont un peu ennuyeux. So I was speaking to one of the people who's from France, and we had a whole conversation the other day about languages and how to learn languages and how to do accents, and I was like, maybe I'll do a vlog about that, how I learned all these different languages, and some tricks that I picked up over time. So, of course, my French visitors are very happy that I'm coming to France. Oh, the camera is gone. I just saw the camera switching off. So yeah, that's the downside of this camera, small battery. Unfortunate, I'm gonna write that. Unfortunately, the camera stopped. Can I, because of course, oh, wait a minute, I know what I'm gonna do. Hey, I'm back. This, I apologize. The reason that all of a sudden the image was gone was that the battery of the camera went out. So it's a very small battery. It's one of the downsides. And I can tell that, so I'm now using the built-in camera of the iMac, which is horrible quality compared to the M50. Oh my goodness, what a terrible contrast. It's not even in focus. I look totally blurry, so let me see if I have a program to bring that back in focus. So I was like, okay, I need to wrap up the stream because, well, without an image, there's nothing to watch. But then I realized, well, wait, I have a built-in camera. So I have this little app from the Macintosh App Store. Can you guys see me? I guess so. The audio didn't stop, though. That's a good thing. At least you knew what was going on. So let's see. The FaceTime built-in camera is on manual. That's why it's out of focus. So I'm going to put it on automatic, and now it's overblown. Oh, this is the most horrible camera ever. Why does Apple do such a bad job when it comes to their built-in cameras? I can't even focus with this thing. Only sharpness. No, this is ridiculous. And the exposure is all wrong, and the aperture, I gotta close the aperture a little bit, so I'm closing the aperture. What I think is actually this camera is not even HD on this iMac. I think it's 720p, and that's why it's so incredibly fuzzy looking. Yeah, there's actually no way to focus with this camera. So, well, anyway, this is what this would be the low-budget version of the stream, like just using this terrible built-in camera of the iMac. So anyway, I was going through the comments and reactions, so let me go back to where I was, because there's so much to go through. I should come back to Poland. I've been to Poland in Krakow, and I really enjoyed it. But I haven't been able to find a good excuse to go back there. Lego Star Trek ships. No, let's not do that. That's a bad idea. Daniel's from Leiden, watching from Leiden. Sammy says, I talked with a woman who put the Narnia book of her daughter in the trash because she was Catholic and she heard the book was about magic. But see, that is exactly illustrating what I was talking about. It's just so short-sighted. In the show, we had this entire discussion about whether Harry Potter is evil or not. And I said, well, if you burn Harry Potter books, you have to also burn Narnia books. And C.S. Lewis is a very well-known Christian. So, some people, it's mostly out of fear. And we know what fear does to the universe. Yeah, fear leads to the dark side. Are we talking Discovery and Jesus? Yes. Samuel never got through the first book of Wheel of Time. We talked about Wheel of Time. I'm enjoying that. What he didn't like about Discovery that much was he never saw the social commentary that defined the classics and the next generation. The acting and the special effects are excellent. Yeah, well, there is social commentary. It's a little bit more muted, but they do stuff that we've never seen. Something like this, the two doctors, the male doctors that have a relationship. That is a first in the Star Trek universe, and it is reflecting a discussion that's going on in our modern day society. But yeah, the overall storyline, not so much. There is the whole question of this, well, let's say the artificial intelligence theme. I can't go into spoilers here, but that is something that we are kind of worried about in our day and age, but it's more muted. It's not as pronounced. Maybe in the future, who knows? Catterday Morning wants to know if I am really a Catholic priest. Some people continue to think that I'm cosplaying. No, I'm really a Catholic priest. Does one have to be Catholic to obtain salvation? Well, the Catholic Church teaches no, not necessarily. Baptism and the Catholic Church are a road to salvation. It's what Jesus wanted. But God is not confined to his sacraments. It's not confined to those, let's say, those most logical ways to learn about God's love. God can always inspire and touch people wherever they are, because God is God, right? So we try to never restrain God. There are rules, there are definitely very important things in faith, but it doesn't mean that God cannot act beyond those means of salvation. Catterday wants to have an answer from this priest if he takes questions. And then Samuel explains, well, he's not doing that today. I'm doing that right now. It's not pre-recorded, but I'm just busy. According to Catterday, one cannot be saved without being a traditional Catholic. Ooh, that is a theologically incorrect position, I would say. According to Catterday Morning, Catholic Church of today is counterfeit. Vatican II was robbers' council and invalid. The seat of St. Peter is vacant. So this is so Catterday Morning is what we call a sede vacantist. I'm not sure how to say that in English, but it's someone who believes that the Pope, the current Pope, and the predecessors from starting at the Second Vatican Council are all false popes. Yeah, well, let's agree to disagree on that. Anyway, and I'm always a bit careful with like these private prophecies and etc. You really have to base your faith on the Bible and on the church who was given the authority by Christ himself to guide the church. And Christ has said that the gifts of the Holy Spirit would be with the church. It doesn't mean that the church is infallible and never makes mistakes, but the Holy Spirit is with the Catholic Church. And what kind of God would that be if he would found the church and then just leave it alone and let it go to hell, literally? So, and I'm always thinking, where does this reaction comes from? Why would these popes all be false popes? Is it because of what they say? Don't you like what they say? Is it fear? Is it, I don't know. I think I would advocate always keep an open heart, an open mind, pray for guidance. And then, of course, you may be convinced that these popes are false, etc. But that still would, if you want to follow God and you want to follow the prescriptions of Jesus, you would still need to love those popes. Because Christ himself says, love your enemies. And there is no way around that. So even if you think that these popes are all the enemies of the faith, I still don't like people that are smack-talking about these popes and condemning them and saying that they're going straight to hell. I think if you want to be a follower of Christ, even if you consider these popes, which I don't agree with, as enemies and false popes, you should still pray for them. You should still pray for priests like me, even if you think that we are bad priests and we're not guiding the people. So do that, and if you pray, then we're good, okay? Because praying, then God can help you. Anyway, but that's a very complicated discussion and a bit heavy-handed. All right. Coffee pie. Okay, there's a lot of... okay, so some people really believe that they are the only ones to have the truth. Well, yeah. Okay. Now everyone is talking in the chat about Twin Peaks. I still need to check that series out. I've seen the first season. There is a second season that I have to work my way through. Well, it's funny, though, in the chat there's actually a conversation, like a discussion between someone who says, I'm an atheist, but doesn't like the kind of the very virulent attitude of the other person who is convinced that the seat of Peter is empty. But yeah, I agree with floppy hairs there. What we need is respect, and even if you hate someone else and you don't agree, you still have the commandment of Christ himself to love that other person. So let's start with that, okay? Before we start bashing each other's brains in. Well, okay, I'm going to quickly through this. So Floppy Hair says, Father Roderick respects our beliefs and doesn't push his beliefs on us. He hardly ever talks about it in his videos about different subjects, and I respect that greatly. Well, that's what I try to do. I always think, my perspective, my attitude is, what if I was not a Catholic priest? What if I was not Catholic? And you know what? That could have totally been the case. Because I've had my times in the past as a teenager where I started to doubt everything. So it could have been in an alternate universe. I may not be sitting here as a priest. But I always think, if I was Catholic, would I still listen to this guy, this priest? And so I always have to empathize with the people that I'm trying to reach and respect where they are in life, because life is a journey. My life has been a journey, and I've grown and I've made choices and I've changed my opinions, and so why would I condemn another person for who he or she is or what he or she believes right now? People change, and I've changed, and I'm not called to convince anyone or to convert. Only God can convert people. Only the Holy Spirit does that. The only thing that I can do is share what I am enthusiastic about, what touches me, and that can be Lego, it can be Star Wars, it can be faith. But I'm called to be a witness, right? Not to shove things through other people's throats. I'm just, and that's my attitude in life. I don't believe that you can force anyone to believe anything. That's why in these chat rooms, there's almost always so much strives, like in politics, you know. It's like the Democrats are trying to convince the Republicans, the Republicans are trying to convince the Democrats, and everybody stays convinced that he or she is right and the others are the enemy. Well, it's not helpful. And so I've learned to be curious about the people that surround me, and especially if people have different opinions and make different choices in life. What makes you happier? To start hitting the other person on the head and you're going to hell and you're not right and I'm right and you're wrong, and that's not making you happier. It's not making the other person happier. It's not going to help you to get closer to God. It's certainly not helping the other person. But what if you would instead be curious and be truly, genuinely interested in the other person? Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you make the choices that you make? What do you hope? Try to find common ground instead of only focusing on what divides us. There's so much division in the world already. But we can be friends. That's what I love about board games. I'm friends with a lot of people that I play for hours and hours with. And we don't share the same faith. We don't share the same beliefs, the same lifestyle. But we find each other in the joy of sharing this game together. And I like that. It's positive and it helps us. And friendship I think in its core is deeply what God wants us to be. God wants us to be friends, and God wants us to respect each other. So who am I, as a representative of my faith, to start condemning and hitting other people because they're not like me? How short-sighted is that? Anyway, I'm on a soapbox right now. Okay, well, you know what? I need to start wrapping things up. I'm starting to get hungry. It is, oh my gosh, it's 20 past 10 in the evening, and tomorrow I have to wake up at 7 to go filming. So anyway, thank you so much for all your commentary, and for what parish are you from? I would like to attend your church for Mass. I'm in the parish of Amersfoort in Netherlands, but there are 2 churches, actually, two parishes, 15 churches. So make sure to contact me if you're in the area, because I may not be in the church that you go to. I am not very good at bilocation yet. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. Sorry for the terrible video quality towards the end of this stream, but it enabled us to continue the conversation. I'll try to improve things over time, and feel free to subscribe to the podcast if you want to listen to the audio version instead of just watching a guy behind a desk talking to the camera. Take care. Bye now.